Hey, welcome to Sarah's podcast. Today we will be discussing a topic that has always been interesting to me for years now. You might ask, what is it? I've always been curious about how the mind of a psychopath/serial killer psychologically works. I cannot fathom how individuals can be fine with a mind that thinks in this way. In this episode, you'll hear my discoveries and things that I've researched regarding this topic. Please tune in. Hi, nice to meet everyone. I'm Sarah. The reason why I wanted to learn about this or research this topic is because my dream in the future is to become a psychologist. The human brain has always been interesting to me, and I would like to understand the human mind more. With the research that I've done, it will help me learn more about serious mental disorders that could affect anyone from the individual exhibiting these disorders to the people surrounding them. I hope this brings awareness to a serious illness without there being any stigma behind it. Some of the topics I will cover in this podcast are: what parts of the brain are greatly impacted from this disorder, what signs from an early age/developmental issues from a young age, antisocial disorder, and how it ties to psychopathy. Each of these topics play hand in hand when discussing the mind of a psychopath. We will also talk about how to remain calm when you realize you've already met a psychopath. It's important to see that they need psychological help and to not act a certain way towards them, as this can either worsen their behavior. So I ask fans of psychology or anyone interested in the topics of psychopaths, you don't want to miss out on this valuable information. So let's just dive right in. First, we will discuss what parts of the brain are directly impacted from this disorder. But before we get into all of this, let's define a psychopath. Psychopathy is a neuropsychiatric disorder marked by deficient emotional responses, lack of empathy, and poor behavioral controls, commonly resulting in persistent antisocial deviance and criminal behavior. Psychopathy is characterized by an extreme lack of empathy. Psychopaths may also be manipulative, charming, and exploitive, and behave in an impulsive and risky manner. They may also lack conscience or guilt, and refuse to accept responsibility for their actions. Now let's see what parts of the brain are directly impacted from this disorder. University of Wisconsin-Madison did a study in which they analyzed images of prisoners' brains of those who were diagnosed as psychopaths and those who weren't, and there were many differences. The study showed that psychopaths have reduced connections between the ventromedial prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for sentiments such as empathy and guilt, and the amygdala, which mediates fear and anxiety. Two types of brain images were collected. Diffusion tensor images show reduced structural integrity in the white matter fibers connecting the two areas, while a second image that maps brain activity, a functional magnetic resonance image or an MRI, showed less coordinated activity between the ventromedial prefrontal cortex and the amygdala. This is the first study to show both structural and functional differences in the brains of people diagnosed with psychopathy, says Michael Cohens, assistant professor in psychiatry in the University of Wisconsin, School of Medicine and Public Health. Those true structures in the brain, which are believed to regulate emotion and social behavior, seem to not be communicating as they should. The decision-making study showed indirectly what this study shows directly, that there is a specific brain abnormality associated with criminal psychopathy, Cohens adds. As we can see from this study, the function and structure of the brain of a psychopath is very different compared to a normal functioning brain. Moving on, let's talk about the signs from an early age/developmental issues that you can notice from a young age. Before we move on, I would like to add that this information shouldn't be used to diagnose or to treat. It is still important to get the proper diagnosis with the professional so they can do the proper screening. As I was saying, Psychopathy is a developmental disorder. Therefore, parents, caregivers, and other family members should know the early signs of psychopathy and become familiar with the behaviors and traits that may appear in children at different ages. In preschool, ages 2 to 4, these are some signs that you can notice. Unusual risk-taking, showing little fear in dangerous situations, doesn't look at others' eyes or faces as much as their peers do, doesn't react when others get scared or sad. In early childhood, from ages 5 to 10, they may seem cold or not show affection, misbehaves more than peers, including lying, stealing, breaking rules, tantrums, or aggression, doesn't seem to care about the consequences like getting a timeout or having privileges removed. In adolescence, ages 11 to 17, these are some signs such as doesn't feel bad or guilty about doing something wrong, doesn't seem concerned about other people's feelings, acts or feels superior to other people, has difficulty keeping friends, doesn't seem to care about performance in school, and may engage in illegal activities. In adulthood, from ages 18 and up, these are some signs that you can see, such as callous or uncaring in response to other suffering or distress, does not show remorse after hurting others or breaking rules, lies often and skillfully, manipulates people to get things, engages in risky or dangerous activities, tends to not plan ahead, leaves things until the last minute, irresponsible, fails to keep promises or follow through with plans, may be superficially charming, doesn't seem to care about performance at school or work, brags frequently, has trouble maintaining relationships, including friendships and romantic relationships, may engage in violent or illegal behavior. It's good to be aware of these behaviors so that the child, teen, or adult can get the help they need. But just because someone may exhibit one behavior or a couple doesn't automatically mean that they are psychopaths. Like I said before, it's still important to get the proper diagnosis with the professional. I'm not a professional, so I can't diagnose, but this is just research that I've done, that I've looked up, from websites, that are trustworthy. So don't take my word on it, but the word from the websites, the work that professionals have put over here. But like I said, it's still important to get the proper diagnosis. Last but definitely not least, we will talk about antisocial behavior and how it ties with psychopathy. Let's define what antisocial behavior is, or what antisocial disorder is. Antisocial disorder, or antisocial personality disorder as it's mostly known as, sometimes called sociopathy, is a mental health condition in which a person consistently shows no regard for right or wrong and ignores the rights and feelings of others. People with antisocial personality disorder tend to purposely make others angry or upset and manipulate or treat others harshly or with cruel indifference. They lack remorse or do not regret their behavior. Many think that being antisocial means not talking much, but in the world of psychology, it has a completely different meaning. A considerable number of studies using behavioral and neural imaging techniques have investigated abnormalities in reward and punishment processing as potential causal mechanisms under antisocial behavior. A present study examines whether or not the different factors of psychopathy are related to decision-making under risk and ambiguity in offenders and how they are related. Also, the study investigates whether general intelligence is associated with decision-making, or moderates the relationship between psychopathy and decision making. The results showed that the only antisocial factor of psychopathy significantly correlates with gamma dice task risky selections, but there is no general relation between psychopathy and Iowa gambling task performance. Lastly, general intelligence neither is related to decision making under risk and ambiguity, nor regulates the relationship between decision making and psychopathy. The study shows that the antisocial factor of psychopathy was associated with decision making under risk rather ambiguity. Our results also suggest that the antisocial factor of psychopathy was more related to executive dysfunction in offenders. I would also like to add that, like other types of personality disorders, antisocial personality disorder is on a spectrum, which means it can range from severity from occasional bad behavior to repeatedly breaking the law and committing serious crimes. Psychopaths are considered to have a severe form of antisocial personality disorder. To sum it up, there's so much psychology you can learn from psychopaths. This was a fun project for me, and I hope that it was fun for you as it was for me. Thank you so much for your time and for listening to my podcast. Have a great day. Sarah's podcast out. The sources that I use for this research project are psychopathyis.org, med.wisc.edu, NCBI, and mayoclinic.org.